We're good.
Yeah. Get going?
Yeah.
Okay, so didn't say hello to you. Wait till you have your mouth full and I ask you. And you, which team are you with?
I was working on the youth team, so I work across the team with media and HRE.
Very nice.
I'm the same. My name's
Great.
Laura.
Okay, so very nice to meet you all and spend time with you. So and Lauren suggested that I talk a bit about my job and then not talk for too long, and then we can just get into a conversation. Does that sound right? So I reckon I have one of the best jobs in the world. I really love my job. It's quite difficult, but I love it. Before I start talking about what I do, I want to thank all of you. And I know that we're filming this and we're going to show it to bookshop volunteers. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who volunteers for Amnesty here, the Human Rights Action Centre, and everybody in the bookshops, because we simply wouldn't be able to have the impact that we have as Amnesty without the work that you do. And in the bookshops, it's great to have that profile in so many cities across the UK, and the income that people pays for us. So thank you very much. Yes, as I say, I think I have a really brilliant job. No day is the same, and I think that's a big thing about the job, for me anyway. But there's themes in it, things that I do. And of course I have a team, so my team is the senior managers of the organisation. So Kerry, who heads up campaigns and communications, Tony, who heads up corporate services, Rosie, who heads up all our fundraising, she's new, she looks after our bookshops as well, and Tim, who heads up the chief executive. The team of 5 of us when you put me in that, and we have responsibility for the whole of AI UK, and obviously you know the teams and everything that we work within, and you can see the way that we organise ourselves. So and I'm accountable to a board, and the board are elected by members of AI UK, because one of the really massively important things to remember about Amnesty is that we are a membership organisation. So the members decide the really important stuff. So they elect board members, and those board members make decisions. They ask me what my advice is, but they make the decisions, not me, in those big strategic choices that sometimes confront us. So the members elect them, and the members are the organisation, and the members choose to have staff, and they choose to organise around particular areas of work, and we are membership and we're democratic, and it's hugely important to remember that. It's the kind of thing that is really special about us, and it's special because we believe in activism. So we believe that we have our impact because lots of ordinary people stand up, take action, and then they have that impact. And we see it again and again in our work. So one of the campaigns I'll talk about briefly would be the Arms Trade Treaty, where last year we got the world to agree to an international arms trade treaty at the UN. And the UK government was very important in that. And the UK government got on board for this campaign because they could see the strength of Amnesty through meeting people in their constituencies and their surgeries, lobbies of Parliament, and all the ways that we mobilise and organise. So we convinced those MPs, and then we convinced the UK government, and then the UK government went into the UN persuading as many people as it could to join us, as well as Amnesty members in other parts of the world doing exactly the same work. And so it's kind of grassroots impact that we can have. So my day, my week, my month, my year has cycles to it, which involve our AGM and members making decisions. We have a global parliament as well. I think of it as a global parliament, which brings together decisions that get made in all those AGMs around the world. We come together and have discussions about globally about the future of Amnesty and the directions we should take. So the weekend before last I was at a meeting which had all the directors of all the sections and structures around the world and all the chairs. So there were 68 countries present, so 68 chairs, 68 directors, and we were looking at how we're organising ourselves, the move of significant resources to the global south that we're engaged in at the moment, looking at some of our governance reform, looking at how our campaigns are going, and thinking about a big issue, a big policy issue on Amnesty's position in terms of sex work, which is a big policy debate for us, and our members have views about that. So that's where direction gets set. And then back here in the UK, our AGM makes key decisions, and we get on with those. So that's part of my work, meeting members, talking with members, visiting groups, seeing various networks that are happening. I am the key spokesperson for the organisation, whether that's in terms of media or meeting with key politicians. So I hold those relationships. On the Foreign Secretary's Human Rights Advisory Council, so I get to sit around his table and tell him what I think, and am briefed wonderfully by the staff here about those things. I do work in terms of asking and working with our major donor team to raise income. So the major donor team does all the work, and then they send me off to get to know somebody and to get them really engaged with our work, and then ask them to support our work. So those are the sorts of things that I get involved in. But I'll stop there because I think it's probably nicer if we get into kind of a conversation and I get to answer any of your questions. Because I didn't properly talk about the campaigns, which where we talked about the Arms Trade Treaty, but in terms of some of our other campaign work, the Torture campaign, the Stop Torture campaign, which we've just launched, it's a very important one for us. Women in Afghanistan, the International Forces League, that's another area that's very important. So we have specific areas of work that we're looking for real change in the world, and our work with different teams at different times in different ways to be able to help that and support that work. So I will stop there now and see whether there are questions.
I have a question.
Yes, great.
Would you mind telling us a bit about your background? Did you go to university and where did you study, and what's been your kind of path to where you are now?
Okay, so I did go to university and I studied philosophy, politics and economics, and I thought for a good while after that I thought about a political career, and then I spent some time working in government policy, and then I worked for an organisation called the Refugee Council for a long time. I loved the Refugee Council. I think that they're an amazing organisation. And I was Deputy Chief Executive there. It was a very busy time in terms of the numbers of asylum seekers and refugees coming to the UK. So the numbers were increasing. I think they went up to about 75,000, so it became a very political issue with lots of hostility. We did lots of campaigning and media work as well as delivering services to very vulnerable people. I went on to run the Bosnia evacuation programme and then the Kosovo evacuation programme into the UK, which is why I'm so passionate about making sure that this government has a Syrian refugee programme. Because I absolutely know what it means to people to be able to get some the support that they need. During that time I spent a year as a civil servant in Stockholm, so I went into the Home Office and worked alongside government ministers in the Home Office just after Labour had come back to power in the late 90s. I found that really useful in the kind of putting government works in a way that was really helpful. It wasn't that there were any great mysteries there, but just being there gives you a greater depth. So I still draw on that understanding of how they operate, and thinking about how we operate. So that was good. And then I came to Council. So I've been here for about 13 years. I seem to spend big chunks of time in places. I like staying somewhere for a while and doing a really kind of significant job. Thank you. Yeah, very welcome. Very welcome. And there was never a plan. It was kind of things happened as opposed to being real. I was never really clear, apart from wanting to work in a really useful way that would help improve people's lives. There was never a kind of one day I'll be the chief executive of Brexit International. There was never that. But so I feel very fortunate to have the job that I do.
I was just wondering about the work you do with BIS.
Yeah.
I was wondering about what sort of stuff you do there.
Yeah, so everybody knows about the International Secretariat, which is where our research and policy and the coordinating work takes place. And that's headed up by Paul Shetty, who's the Secretary General. The work that I do there and with them is partly at Saladin's request, in the sense that as Secretary General he has a global management team, and he's created a team which has his senior team, which is a bit like mine here, because he's a bit bigger, it's a bigger operation, and then he's invited onto that about 8 directors of sections from around the world. So I'm one, the US director, the directors from Senegal, Argentina, various parts of the world. So we represent different sizes of Amnesty sections in different parts of the world. We work with Salil as part of his global management team, and the work that we do there is to help support him and his team making the right decisions about how we move forward together. So we bring that kind of section perspective and the membership perspective to that, hopefully some of the skills that we've learned along the way as directors to how to run a great big movement like Amnesty. So the areas that I concentrate on there, one area I concentrate on is fundraising. I think that we at AIUK have a lot of skills to bring to the rest of the movement in thinking about how we raise our money. So I've chosen that area to concentrate on because I think I can bring not just what I know, but what the rest of the organisation knows to that as well, and help us build a bigger and bigger movement, and one that has more money, so we do even better work, even more effectively. So I concentrate on that. Because we are in the same country as a big chunk of the International Secretariat, there's lots of different ways that we work together in different places in the organisation. And I'm really pleased that we do that. We try and bring the strengths of both the Secretariat and the section together, because I think when you put the two together, you get the whole picture. And I think just sections, just the IS, you don't quite get the strength of it all. They do all that brilliant research, of course. We do all the brilliant kind of campaigning, ordinary people reaching out, bringing more, bringing that all together so we're as strong as we can be as part of what I try to do in my role in the IS. Is that the sort of thing you're after?
Yeah, that makes more sense now.
Yeah, so I can be, global management team meet about 3 times a year for 3 days. Director of AI Australia is on it, so we don't get there to just come over for a couple of hours. So we kind of tend to concentrate into kind of big 3-day chunks of time. And then, I can be popping down to the International Secretariat for a particular meeting, so a particular issue. It's great having them in the same country. And what was interesting at that meeting I was telling you about, chairs and directors, was that we heard from heads of our new hubs. So this thing that's happening at the moment where the International Secretariat is, instead of having 400 or 500 people based in London, we're moving to offices in regions. So last year we opened in West Africa, East Africa and South Africa, so Dakar, Nairobi and Johannesburg, and also Cape. And when we all got together the weekend before last, we met the heads of each of those offices, and they were fabulous, really fabulous. And the small sections in that area, so West Africa, we have sections in Benin, Burkina Faso, Sierra Leone, Senegal, Thank you. And a couple of others. But anyway, those sections are now kind of feeling the movement, close to it. So instead of being in West Africa trying to get in touch with London, they're in West Africa talking to the Dakar office and feeling like, wow, this is really good. We can feel Amnesty. We're not kind of phoning up London or emailing London, we're absolutely feeling the difference. And it's early days, but it was a very exciting meeting for that. Trini, who heads up our work in Hong Kong, was talking about, remember when Iowa Kamada came out of death row, we were death row for 14 years, just an awful story. So Hong Kong office, together with AI Japan, did a brilliant job of getting media coverage of what Amnesty had done over the years. And before, we'd have been in Japan waiting for London to wake up, literally, because of the time zones. So it's making it feel more vibrant. It is very early days, and it's been tough. It's been very tough for staff in London who can't move their jobs. It's been really hard. But in terms of what we should look like in the future, it's the right way forward. I have to think about how I can help everybody here at AI UK feel that in the way that I feel it, because I'm very privileged to get to go to these events where I meet people. So I need to think about how I bring that here.
You mentioned this kind of expansion of Amnesty's presence in the global south. What kind of campaigns do you anticipate, would accompany this expansion? And what kind of campaigns would you like to see Amnesty dealing with that kind of expansion?
Okay, so I think as we become, as Amnesty, we've been very significant in the Northern Hemisphere, less present in the Southern Hemisphere. As we change that, so we're significant in both parts, how we make our decisions and who's involved in making those decisions about what we campaign on will change. So what we campaign on will change. But it won't be, I don't think it's going to be any great dramatic thing. I think it'll just be a process of, understanding the human rights challenges in the global south and responding to that. So if you went to any of those countries I've talked about, you'd see the Stop Torture campaign. And they would be working on that. As a movement, we're doing some consultation with our members at the moment for what our global strategic goals should be from 2016 to 2020. So we're working in 4-year chunks of planning, and our current strategic plan runs out in 2016. So next year, 2015, we'll agree 2016 to 2020. So there's a lot of consulting going on, a lot of talking globally, a lot of scanning the horizon, what's coming at us, what's of concern in different parts of the world. So we'll bring all of that together. There's going to be a few rounds of consultations. It's been a first one, very shortly we're into the second one, then there'll be a third one. So we'll be working out as we go along. We're quite and being a democracy, means you have to build these things. Sit in London and say, this is what we're going to do. You have to kind of build it. So there'll be lots of listening, there'll be lots of working out where we agree, and there'll be working out where some disagreements. And then by the time we all turn up for our next Global Parliament in August 2015, we'll know what's straightforward and we don't need to waste so much time on, and we'll know what the big differences or choices, because there'll probably be more choices than differences, you can't do are, and we'll involve our AGM in that thinking in our members, everybody else will, and then we'll spend a week and we'll really get under the skin of it, and hopefully make the right decisions there. So some of the preliminary work that we've done in the UK has thrown up some interesting issues, and I think the one that I can sense other people in other parts of the movement talking about is human rights in the digital age, or surveillance, privacy, discussions, is the kind of privacy, freedom of expression, human rights in the digital age. So that's there. We also decided at this meeting the other weekend that although our strategic goals should take up, should be most of what we do, we should allow sections to do a little bit of local work, respond to what's in front of you. And so I know that talking to the head of our office in Kenya, she's doing some work on some of the awful anti-homosexuality legislation surrounding that part of Africa, where they're criminalising people for being gay, talking about the death penalty for being gay. So, they're doing some of that. So most of it will be a kind of global, we're all in this together, but we'll leave room for people to do some things that are local and need doing. It's complicated sometimes. It's not so much complicated, it's a bit long-winded, but in a way that's the talking about it so that we see where we fit in the global picture. I think is really, really useful. That we don't sit in London and just make decisions. We can say, okay, right, what should we do? It is this process of bringing people along. And over the years, that's been, I think, Amnesty's strength. And the example I use is LGBT rights. You could, when you look at the whole history of Amnesty, think we were a bit late to that one. But when we came to it, we had brought AI Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, with us. We've done that work of, okay, this is why it's important, and we'll show you. And they get it, and they're some of the most brilliant advocates of all of this globally. We never want to kind of leave bits of Amnesty, we want to bring it all together and move forward as a global movement.
I was going to ask, as a law student, generally I did think I was like loads of people with legal background.
Yeah.
But I met a human rights advisor, she was saying she's the only kind of legal specialist. And I was just wondering whether that is just how the general picture has been, whether the majority of legal side of work of Amnesty is with the IS.
Yeah, it's with the IS. So, we don't need... we need that work to be done really well, and we need it done in one place, and the rest of us go, thank you. Not kind of like, well, we'll do it again, or, we'll second guess you, So, if you take something like the sex work policy at the moment, should Amnesty have a position? What should Amnesty's position be? That will be very much informed by the legal and policy people in the International Secretariat that set out that for us, and then we'll go away and debate it, think about the options within all of that. So they're very important, but yeah, so Rachel is next. Yeah, so Rachel's in our programmes and advocacy team, and that team is responsible here in the UK for making sure that our policy is right, that we adapt anything for the UK. Don't strategy, you have to kind of adapt it for the UK, not change it, just to kind of make sure it's working for you in your local context. They're responsible for our political strategy and direction. So they do that for the whole of AI UK. So, and they have very strong relationships with the right teams at the International Secretariat. And that model would then be kind of reflected across the movement. So we'll have to get you introduced at the International Secretariat so you can see what's happening down there. Just think about that.
Do you know the Mexican embassy? When you
Yes.
handed in the letter, you went in. What happened there?
Well, so do you remember who I was with? I was with one of our country coordinators.
Okay.
So that's a member. So we have some members, AI UK members, who take on different roles. And there's a group of members called country coordinators, and they become, in different ways, they become very knowledgeable about a particular country. And what they do then is they help the rest of Amnesty in the UK understand about that country as necessary. So Tilly, who was with me, was the country coordinator for Mexico, and what she'll be doing with AI members is going and doing talks at groups and taking up particular cases and helping groups campaign. So she'll have that kind of member role with other members. So we knocked on the door to hand in our letter, and it was opened, a very nice Mexican diplomat, and Tilly said, we're going to come in and talk to you. And they went, oh, okay. And I just think it's amazing, you know, because I'm not sure I'd have done that. You know, I'd have said, I've got a letter for you. But, you know, Tilly just went, so we're going to talk to you, you know. So they had to come in there, you know. And then we went, and between the two of us, we were saying what we thought about Claudia's case and what we thought should be happening. And since then, we've had an invitation to meet the Mexican ambassador. So that was brilliant. So I've forgotten the date for that, but in a couple of weeks' time, I'll be going to see the Mexican ambassador. We'll talk about the case again and about what needs to happen in Mexico to stop torture happening. So, but that was nice. I thought Tilly was brilliant, actually.
I guess sometimes if you never ask, you never get.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. She was fabulous, really fabulous. Were many of you on that day?
I was there. Someone was wrapped up as well.
We were.
I was wrapped up.
Were you all right after that? I worried about you. I stood behind you and I could see the tension in people's bodies. You know, like, I can do this, I can do this.
Yeah, it was. We all. I don't think any of us expected it, but we'll just do it stunt and they'll take it off. But we all just immediately went stiff and quiet and withdrawn.
It's quite sweaty on the face.
Yeah.
That was my main
It's a hot day, wasn't it? It's a hot
Yeah.
day. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for doing that. Thank you as well.
Was an experience.
I was thinking, gosh, I hope nobody faints.
No.
I thought it was a very good day. I thought we did well that day.
Any other questions? Okay.
Well, I'm not your only time ever, so invite me back.
Okay.
Next time it would be really nice to do this again. And I should talk to Charlotte and others about meeting bookshop volunteers when they're, because I know they come to the HRAC from time to time, so I'll talk to Charlotte about that so I can get to talk to them.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. I should be thanking you.